The Sydney Roosters are up next. Last year's all of our tips ended in that wacky game of football at the against
The
South.
the
end
punch-a-thon.
of their season.
The head high-a-thon.
So they have. Let's have a
Head
quick draw
high.
here. They kick off with the Dolphins first up on 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. And the Warriors, Bunnies, the Bye, Para, Storm. They play the Bunnies twice, Storm twice, Dolphins twice, Warriors, Dragons, Penrith, Eels, Seagulls. 4 Thursday games, 6 Friday games, and get big turnarounds as a result, most of them. So, they've signed. Let me just pull this up. The Cheese, obviously a big in. Now my page just
Brandon
decided
Smith for anyone. Who
Oh, sorry, Brandon
doesn't know
Smith.
who the Cheese
Is it now at this point, if you don't know who the Cheese is, you probably don't watch enough
If you
rugby
don't-
league,
Put it this way, if you've made it an hour and 46 minutes into this show,
and you don't
you
know.
probably know who the Cheese is. Corey Allen from the Dogs, Tuku Hau Tapua, Jackson Paulo from the Bunnies, Robert Toya and Jake Turpin as cover for Connor Watson, I suppose, who's injured already.
Yep.
Renoff for Tony's gone. Adam Kieran's gone to France. Lockie Lamb, Freddie Lussix, Kevin Nguama, Saluka Fafita, Siswa's gone, my man. He's gone to Catalan, Sam Verrills and Volkman.
Siswa.
Siswa. The Trooks, eh? Yeah, here they are. What do the 17 look like? It should be very
Who do you
straightforward.
reckon should be number one?
Probably go for Teddy.
Suwali?
For Teddy?
Oh, like, and this
Manu?
is the thing, you can be cute and, like, you're getting to the time where I wouldn't, if they didn't have Kiri, it wouldn't surprise me if Teddy started playing 6, but
Yeah.
it's
Teddy
not
at
gonna
one.
happen.
Tupu and I've got Paulo starting on
I
the
think
wing.
they will too. Yeah.
I think
Don't
it's
disagree
probably
with
their
that.
best option on the wing,
Ooh,
to be
okay.
honest. Suwali and Manu in the centres, close to the best strike pair of centres that you're going to get. Kiri and Walker, up and down a bit last year, but it's the combination that they need, and they need to work on that a little bit. I've got Collins starting. I don't know why, because he was very up and down
I
last
do
year.
too. I
but
just think it's more due to the
it's-
what
they have
they've
to
got.
size, pace.
Oh, Lodge will start.
Yeah, but Lodge is still not confirmed yet, so I've left
Isn't
him
he?
out of the talk.
He
at the
wasn't.
moment,
He
but
wasn't. He's
he
not.
still
in,
hasn't
he's not
confirmed
in
with the
their
contract.
team.
Oh,
because the
CPA or something else.
the collective bargaining agreement hasn't been
Righto,
completely
righto.
signed off, so he's on a training trial with them at the moment.
Ah,
he will get
that's
he
right.
will get a contract, but
They don't know how to pay him
at
yet.
the moment. So he'll probably come in and Collins will go back to the bench. But yeah, him and Jared Weir Hargraves starting in the front row. Brandon Smith at hooker. Crichton and I've got Nat Butcher starting in the back row.
So I
over
thought that would be a bold
Tupanua.
one, but so do I.
Radley will play 13. The 14 worries me a little bit, to be honest. It would have been Watson, but he's now injured,
Yeah.
and I can't see what Turpin brings as a 14. But I think
really
they're going to have to
like,
play him at 14. To be honest,
They really like the backup 5'8". He could end up in.
Hutchison.
Yeah, he'll,
yeah,
love
Hutchinson
him.
might play
They love
14. Yeah,
him.
he's a good defender and
Yeah.
got a good kicking game. So yeah, possibly Egan Butcher,
Yep.
Tupanua, and then Nathaniel Nathaniel White or Baker is the
Did you
other.
say the other Butcher?
Yeah, Egan
Yeah,
Butcher.
sorry.
Yeah, Egan Butcher at 15,
Sorry, I
Tupanua
was
at
reading.
16, and then either Baker or Nathaniel White at 17,
It's
I would
interesting,
imagine.
but I agree. I think the Butcher boys did enough to probably be ahead of Tupanua.
Yeah,
We'll start with.
yeah.
Tupanua's
Absolutely.
got an error in him. He's got
Defensive error and a
an
handling
attack-
error.
handling error,
Yeah,
and I think he might be better served playing 25 minutes and just come on and trying to
yeah, half
beat
an hour.
up some people.
At
around
least
half
until
time.
he
Sorts
gets
it
his
out.
form back.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know if
obviously,
it's a
he's probably
constant
training
thing.
a house down and
A
ready to
couple of
go.
the noticeable admissions, Corey Allen, Matt Lodge, which we mentioned, who will probably come
Yeah.
into the starting side. Hutchinson, Terrell May, who is someone I think will probably
He's pretty good.
possibly force his way into the side by the end of the year. Momirovsky, who is obviously a backup centre. He's not getting a start in front of those other two. And, Watson and Smith. But there's a bit of depth there. They do have cover in most positions. So
Look, we know what we get from the Roosters. We know. I think Cheese is a fantastic signing for him.
absolutely.
brilliant.
Brilliant signing. He will straighten him up. Obviously, Verrills, good service. We know. We've mentioned it 8 times.
Much better defender.
But he's going to
Smith
work his
is a
ass
much
off
better
in
defender.
defence.
Yeah.
He's going to offer an actual real point of attack. And he's
really
very
good at those sniping runs and the little short balls close to the
He
line
could score 12, 15 tries this year.
and set up
And
probably 5 or 10. in and around
And
those
he's
posts.
come through a system where they love crash plays. He's got the best crash play forward pack in the comp. He's going to be putting the ball in Angus Crichton's chest every, once a set. So you're going to, and not to mention Tupanua at the Butcher Boys. So he's fantastic for him in a fantastic team. And a team that what he will do is get them out of that thing where they like getting caught in the corners a lot at the end of a set where they don't quite know where they're going. They'll get, how often was Kiri or Tedesco tackled running
Over
around
in a
like
corner.
a chook in the corner?
Yeah.
No pun
He'll
intended.
just take it himself and go through the guards.
Yeah, so he'll get them straightened up a lot, which should make work in life quite nice for Sam Walker too.
Well,
It probably will make his life a lot easier, to be honest.
Yeah.
I also think, on the other hand, Brandon Smith could be the best thing that's happened to Luke Keary in a few years as well, taking a lot of that pressure off of him to perform, and maybe it's just
And straightening them
sadly
up
not
too,
up
because
to
a
it
lot
anymore.
of the question marks are going to be around the halves and their combination, because it just did not seem to work for a large majority of the year. Even though they were still one of the better teams in the competition, there was a clear breakdown between the 6 and the 7. And if they can have a hooker who's dictating the middle of the field and basically separate them so that they don't have to combine that much, and then they play with their outside men, the second row is dropping inside, outside, and then they've got their centres and wingers outside them. Just, as you said, straightens everything up. It gives a much more direct point of attack, and I think it will benefit both the halves.
Well, but
And they reckon he's the fittest he's ever been. Well, he's said he's come out and he's dropped he's another one. They're all on the Anthony Minchella diet. So they've got the Minchella diet, and Newcastle are drinking man shakes. But anyway, they're
boiled chicken and
he's
rice.
Nutritionist now. They've set up a food truck in the car park, and another Robbo innovation.
It's just when you think about it too with Brandon Smith, this is the first time that they realistically have had a class hooker since 2018, because while Jake Friend was still at the club for a bit, he was out injured for most of 2019 and came on off the bench in the 2019 grand final, and that was it. And I'll be honest, Jake Friend before that he got injured in 2019 compared to after is a bit of a different
And I think
player,
Cheese will revel in the opportunity to. It will be his team. He hasn't had that at the Storm since his first year, which was arguably his best year of his career.
Yeah.
When he was in charge of that Storm team and he was the 80-minute hooker.
Yep.
And then Harry comes along, and then they're sharing it, and then he's going back to back row, and he's been a different player.
Yeah.
So I think he'll relish the responsibility of being in control of the middle forwards of the Roosters.
You can sort of tell
and it helps to have that kind of pack running off you too.
You can also sort of tell that while Smith and Grant, we said it before, seem to have a great chemistry, that at least Brandon Smith always knew that he'd be sort of the second choice and the one who'd be pushed back, and you can tell he at least felt
of dummy half. That was the only difference.
You can tell he at least feels that he should be a starting hooker in any NRL team, and this is
he's been saying
the
it
perfect
for
opportunity.
2.5 years or
this
whatever it
is.
Yeah.
This is the perfect opportunity to prove it. And to be honest, I believe him. I think as well it was.
Well, he's fantastic in the World
Yeah,
Cup.
Well, every time he goes
it was almost ludicrous that the Australian and the New Zealand hooker were sharing game time.
I was going to say, every time he goes
Melbourne,
and plays for New Zealand, you see how good he is.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, we spoke a lot about the Storm forward pack in terms of the actual forwards they lost, but Brandon Smith's a big loss.
Yeah.
Even playing lock, he was doing a lot of work.
He was, absolutely.
Back row, and the old cannonball runs and the things he used to just...
Well,
there was games there he dragged them where they were doing sweet fuck all for a good 15 minutes, and he would drag them out of game because say, fuck it, I'm going to run as hard as I
Take
can.
3 hit-ups in a set and a half.
If he was at Melbourne this year, he'd probably be starting lock or in the front row, looking at how weak their forward pack is.
100%. We haven't even spoken about the best player in the world, James Tedesco. Actually, no, Joey Manu's the best player in the world, technically. The Golden Boot winner.
Yes,
so
correct.
There it is.
Roll the clip from early 2021. Roll the clip.
So he, strike all across the field. And Manu's going to take a lot of dummy half work off Cheese as well.
Footwork, pace, explosive power in the forward pack. This team will be the top 2 or 3 teams in the competition week in, week out.
Just on Manu too, we've sort of mentioned fullback for him, but I think the way the Roosters are set up, especially with Suwali there as an option, then Tedesco's great still. I think if anything could happen with Manu, if Keary is absolutely flopping for half the year, I think Manu
6.
is more likely to shift into 6 than he would be fullback at this time. I think it is a possibility maybe in around 15 or something if the Roosters aren't doing too
Doesn't
well.
hurt
It
when you've got
depends.
someone like Manu and Teddy who could both go and play 6 or 7 if you needed them to,
Yeah.
because your halves are injured or they're not playing well.
Matt Lodge is massive for this team too. A
Absolutely.
big. He was, whatever we've said about him over the years, yeah. But he came into this team. He fitted in perfectly. He was what they needed last year. The back end last year. He'll get their forwards going. Takeo is a loss because we all considered him a top top 5
That's
prop.
probably
but
the only thing that the front row rotation is probably the only
Mm.
thing that I do have question marks around this team. They've got beautiful, strong ball runners all over the field, but that front row rotation I think could bog them down at times.
Terrell May might be the answer, but they might be confident just going in and just playing 4 back rowers
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Butcher, Baker, Tupanua, the other bloke who I've just had a mental blank.
Well, you've got
you've still got 3. You've still got Jared.
Lodge, Collins, and
Yeah,
Jared.
they'll do. And Collins was well under par
Yeah.
last year when he came back. So, I did last year, but I'm going to tip minor premiers. I think it's a year. I think they're going to be hot. And Penrith dropping 2 lengths, which we'll get to momentarily, suits them.
I think both the Butcher boys improve. I think Crichton does also. I've got question marks around Radley and Jared just because of what we saw at the back end of last year and the way that they do lose their cool. And Tupanua is probably the biggest question mark I've got. And I do really like Tyrell May. I think there's something about him.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of an aggressive head on him as well, but I think that he could be someone to watch later in the season.
Well, I sort of don't like wrapping teams that I tipped to win the premiership the year before and then they didn't, a la the Raiders for a couple of years. I seem to have had a bit of a grudge against them from when I tipped them to win the comp in 2021. I tipped the Roosters in 2022. However,
As did I.
I think it's hard to go past minimum top 4 unless they flop.
I think it's minimum top 3 to be honest. I can't see 2 other teams
unless
better
a
than
repeat of the first half of 2022 happens and there is a surprise team who is overperforming and goes
Which there
above
always
them,
is,
which
but they
is
generally
what the
don't finish top
Cowboys.
4, but
which
they-
the
There was
Cowboys
2
did
last year,
last
wasn't
year.
there?
The Cowboys and the Sharks,
Yeah.
and that obviously hindered the Roosters. But I think this year it's got to be minimum top 4, or it's a complete and utter failure.
I'm a Daggy. I think minor premiers, but I don't think they win the comp.